Hello and welcome to the Orbiting Brick, and today's video starts off where the previous video left off, so if you haven't seen that, there should be a link on screen to that. Yeah, last time we ended off with this craft assembled in low Kerbal orbit, and so now we'll see where it heads off to. And so first I'm planning some maneuvers since obviously we're going beyond Kerbal. And if you're wondering why, actually, I probably should explain. Yeah, I'm using the New Horizons Planet Pack, so Kerbal has been moved to be a moon of the gas giant Sona, which will come to play later on. Now, right now, we're using the Uber-Earth effect. So we're bringing a periapsis to minimize fuel spent to raise our orbit. And, we use that remaining upper stage to start our burn. I then realized that actually there's something I forgot to do. And this is going to seem like a very bad idea. It's detaching the service module for a return capsule. You'll see why I did that later on, but yeah, that was a very intentional maneuver I planned for. Now we can briefly continue our burn before deciding that actually we messed up the burn too much, and I'll plot another maneuver. And this will be the one that gets us our escape trajectory from Kerbal. They were actually not going to leave the sphere of influence of Sona because, well, you've already seen from the title and thumbnail, we're going to an asteroid. If I continue with that maneuver, you'll see, yeah, you can see the yellow target orbital line there. I did initially plan to just conduct another maneuver to raise our apoapsis, but yes, we're going to a large asteroid in orbit of Sona. So we now conduct our Kerbal escape burn. Struggling with the ledge motors for a bit there, but we're able to get it at some point. And yeah, it's asparagus staging on this transfer stage. It'll actually use up the first set of fuel tanks before this maneuver is even completed. Yeah, it's a long maneuver. We even briefly enter the atmosphere, but everything survives. And we can detach that first fuel tanks. There they go. And we now leave Kerbal behind. And so I'll talk more about what we're going to do at the asteroid once we get there. So right now, we're just orientating for the maneuvers we're going to have to do in orbit of Sona, one of which we'll do a few hours after we leave Kerbal's sphere of influence. And so, we now escape Kerbal, and just a few hours later, we conduct a maneuver to, this is a part of what gets us on a trajectory to intersect the asteroid's orbit. You can see just how close we are to Kerbal there. Honestly, I really like this shot for some reason. But now we time warp higher up to our Sona apoapsis, I guess approaching it, since there's going to need to be a plane change to change our inclination so that we can intersect with the asteroid's orbit. And a inclination change is more efficient at a higher apoapsis. And we actually don't need to worry about life support at all during this, since with USI Life Support, I have gotten, I believe, as close as possible to have a infinite duration contained life support system. It's not actually for infinite duration. We'll eventually run out of fertilizer to continue growing crops. But for length of this mission, we're going to be alright. And we actually, here we're passing in the shadow of Sona, which is a bit of a problem since our only source of electrical charge is the solar panels. But we're able to survive on batteries until the sun re-emerges. which you can already see it illuminating the rings there. There we go. And so now it's time to conduct our plane change. And I actually don't even need to use the ullage boosters for this. I just use the RCS to get ullage. And now you can see how this maneuver will get us on a course to intercept the asteroid. And now the rest of this rendezvous is surprisingly similar to, well, a normal rendezvous. We're going to do a very large burn to get off our relative velocity to the asteroid, since we're traveling in a very different orbit to it. But after that, it's going to be, again, a fairly standard rendezvous, where we burn towards the target, kill off our relative velocity, burn towards the target, and continue repeating that. But yeah, after this long burn, we're going to be in a fairly high orbit of Sona. So I guess I could have talked more about the actual crew. There's 6 crew members on board, 4 of which will crew just a special vehicle once we reach the actual asteroid itself, which you'll see later on. But yeah, we about have cancelled out our relative velocity, and soon we'll start bringing towards the target. So again, normal rendezvous process. And I had actually timed out, well, basically I had been planning for this mission. I figured out the approximate times for how long each phase of the mission should take. So I was trying to maintain that schedule. I believe we actually arrived at the asteroid sooner than I expected. So I guess we did have more time to do our rendezvous. I still wanted it to be done before the allotted time to return occurred. Because otherwise I was unsure about the transfer windows, and we might not have enough Delta V to return in time before life support runs out of fertilizer, and yeah. Yeah, we're continuing to burn. I hope we'll, yeah, there we go, skipping ahead to when we actually approach the asteroid. As you can see, it now approaches with, well, we now approach it within about, well, I think right about, we're about to cross the 2.5 kilometers, and at 2.2, well, you'll see that it will render into the actual game's view. Again, what do we call what is this view called? It's not the map screen. I'm pretty sure Mathnown ran into this issue once in a video, but yeah. Now you can now see the asteroid. It's a fairly large asteroid. I forget what size class it actually is. I want to see class B. But yeah, we now slow ourselves relative to the asteroid, and we can now make a very close approach to it. So I can see you continue to approach it. Then you're going to see how large it is compared to our spacecraft. Now, there's actually going to be a problem with how we're approaching this. We're approaching it from this. Basically, from our perspective, it's excluding the sun from us, which is going to cause problems later on, which you will see. But yeah, I don't want this mothership to collide with the asteroid, so we're going to cancel relative velocity yet again, and come to essentially a stop just a few hundred meters away from it. Actually, by a few hundred, I mean, like, I don't remember what it says, but I think it's actually less than 100 meters we stop. No, 130 meters. But now we can get 4 crew members into our expedition vehicle. This is the purpose of the craft that was launched in the previous video. So, yeah, it's currently undocked. I'm going to quickly correct the velocity of the mothership, which I'm now concerned might start drifting away from the asteroid. I realize it's actually drifted far closer now, it's only 74 meters. I briefly check Kerbal Engineer readouts, but that tells me absolutely nothing about how relative velocity looks. But yes, this is the expedition vehicle. It's using parts from Planetside, which the crew capsule as well as the RCS fuel tank. All of that is from Planetside. The Planetside vehicle actually has a custom-made grapple part for it, but I couldn't get that to work for some reason. So yeah, we're going to latch onto the asteroid and do some science on the surface of it. Now, I initially was going to just go straight into grabbing it, but then I realized this thing only has solar panels on it, so we'd run out of electric charge and lose control of the craft. So we instead reorientate to the top of the asteroid. And I'd say that's a relative term. That means we can get some solar energy. And I'll initially aim for this location here. And of course, asteroids, the collider is a bit weird, so we actually sink very far into the surface. And for some reason, it doesn't grab on. I'll actually have to reload a quick save to get it to work. So you'll see that now. There we go. We have now docked to the asteroid. But I'll decide that this isn't a good spot, so I'll relocate to this, I guess, a bridge, this higher point that you can see in front of us, where we have better access to the sun. And the craft will actually sink deeper into the asteroid now. So now, beautiful shot there of the craft on the asteroid, and we can actually go and do an EVA across the asteroid. Again, it doesn't have gravity, so we're doing an EVA that also happens to be near an asteroid. We can actually take some surface samples while we're at it. Yeah, here we are. Now, here's the thing, my decision to do this EVA will actually impact the mission later on, since for some reason Kerbalism doesn't like it when you go on an EVA, return to a craft that doesn't have full model plant, and try and go on an EVA again, since it removes all the model plant from your EVA pack, and I haven't found a way to replenish it yet. So yeah, that will cause issues later on. But now we've done our science. The mothership has gotten precariously close to the asteroid, so let's quickly remedy that. But once that's done, we can actually depart the asteroid. So we undock. And we can now try and dock back to the mothership, but there's going to be problems with that. And we're targeting the front docking port, the one we were just at. And yeah, I'm flying over using RCS translation controls, which means that the stupid Kerbal Funds UI keeps popping up, because again, for some reason that pops up every time I use the L key, even though that's a very major key for RCS translation. But for some reason, the craft just won't dock. And we're now running out of electric charge, so I have to quickly shoot up to get out of the blocking of the asteroid. But I now try another attempt to dock, and we're right blind, and then everything goes wrong. And I just can't get the craft to dock. So, I have an idea to avoid this. So we can get one of our Kerbals on EVA, and just EVA over to the mothership. And this works pretty well, as you can see. So I decided to do this for every single Kerbal, since we don't actually need to redock the expedition vehicle with the mothership. So that's 2 out of 4, and now 3 out of 4. But then we're going to encounter a problem, where with the last Kerbal, we don't have more propellant, because again, that got siphoned from the EVA pack when we reboarded, and there's no way to get that back. I then have a strange idea of just pulling up as close as possible to the airlock, and then jumping over to the mothership, and that actually works first try. I was really impressed by the fact that it worked in the slightest. But yeah, now the expedition vehicle can be flown unmanned back to the asteroid, or can dock and continue to do some science. There we go. And now it's time for our crew to return home. So yeah, it's pretty simple. We're just going to lower periapsis around Sona, and the way this works out, we're going to be right at a transfer window to Kerbin. And with a minimal adjustment, we'll be able to get an encounter, and we'll be able to re-enter Kerbin's atmosphere from there. And yeah, everything should be good. So we say goodbye to the asteroid, which, because of how distant object enhancement works, just vanishes once it reaches over 2.2 kilometers. But yeah, we can now lower our periapsis, expand that final set of drop tanks, and now begin our journey back towards Kerbin. But during that, we'll have some part failures. So we'll get our engineer out on EVA and be able to fix that. Please note that, again, the mob plant has just vanished, so we're not able to do an actual EVA, we can just go out on the ladder. Which, again, for some reason works. But yeah, we continue to approach our periapsis, and we conduct another maneuver to get us on track to encounter Kerbin. And now we approach Kerbin from a very different perspective here. We're coming essentially we're coming straight down from the North Pole, essentially. But we can transfer all the crew over into the return vehicle and guide the mothership away. The mothership will just be expended and be destroyed in the atmosphere. With the return vehicle, you might say, it has no means of propulsion now, so it's stuck on its trajectory. However, it has RCS on it, and so my plan this entire time, as well as also the solar panels on it, the capsule can be a self-sustained spacecraft without its service module. And so, yeah, we were able to jettison the service module to save mass for the entire journey. So I felt that was a pretty clever mission design. Yeah, we can now re-enter. And there's going to be some pretty fireworks as the mothership explodes. I can see it's actually going to, the mothership is going to break apart into three segments, I believe. You can see it there. And just some nice plasma trails from reentry particle effects renewed. As well as from Firefly, of course. I believe some of the debris from the mothership actually will survive Kerbin's atmosphere and re-escape back into space around Sona. But as for a capsule, it will slow down enough on its first pass through the atmosphere that it will re-enter Kerbin's atmosphere once again and be able to slow down and land. I just quickly want to make sure I had all 6 Kerbals on board. But now we conduct our final re-entry pass. There we go, nice plasma. And yeah, after this pass, our apoapsis will be within the atmosphere and we'll just land. So yeah, suborbital now. And the plasma dies down, and so our parachute will deploy. And this will conclude this mission. So yeah, again, sorry for the delays to this. Again, this initially was going to be one video, but I realized that video would be 46 minutes long, and I just didn't think anybody would want to watch that. So that's been kind of harsh. Hopefully this made sense. Hopefully just, again, give your feedback on this video in the comments down below. So yeah, I'm doing my outro a bit too early, so this is not going to line up. I guess we'll wait until splashdown. And there we go. Almost. There we go. Yeah, I want to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And goodbye.